Hi, Albert. How are you?
I'm Aubrey Shepherd, and I have visited this site. I've spent enough time there. It's a beautiful place, and I understand the residents were pretty unhappy about possibilities here, and I noticed they had a sign out there urging people to come to this meeting. At 20.99 acres, there's a lot of steep, and there's a lot of rocky, and I would imagine it would be a lot of blasting going on. The surface stone was primarily sandstone, and not being a geologist, that didn't give me a hint about what's immediately below it. So anyhow, it's a spectacular wildlife habitat, and it's got a lot of big trees, a lot of small trees, but probably there are many that qualify under the ordinance for preservation. And as we've heard tonight, people earlier discussion get a lot of variances for a lot of things, including for tree preservation. I remember when we first passed the ordinance, we thought it was really tough, like you'd go to jail if you cut a big tree down in your backyard or something. And it's so far from that now that even violating the rules that we do have, there's not really a penalty. It's a monetary change. And so, just as in the last thing, you're putting back some little scrubs that may not live and are planted quite often in a very inadequate bit of soil for the roots. And they're basically planted on the surface of very hard painted something under there. Quite often it may be old blacktop or some limestone gravel fill under it that is not particularly helpful for vegetational growth. But this, as I say, I can see why the neighbors object to it, and some of the neighbors may just not want anything to happen there, which is understandable, but there are many different ways you could justify it. So I guess after looking at that and looking at the stream that goes through there that the highway department just dredged out and as we put in the utility lines and widened the road and so forth, you lost a lot of trees in that process nearby, and the stream itself is now a ditch. It used to go under the highway in a different place from where it goes under. Now it becomes a parallel ditch and crosses. That's called Lynn Creek. And if you get down in and look at it, it's a pretty substantial stream, and where it's natural, it's got some beautiful features. And it runs into Casca, the one that the city's helped with other entities to restore to a natural state in some areas. So if there were nobody living around it in those very expensive homes that are there, it still would be an area I would be concerned about as a person who has been involved with tree preservation as a small child, getting mad because the oil company was spilling their oil into Caddo Lake and killing 100,000-year-old cypress trees, things like that. But anyway, I would recommend that you not change this from rural single-family or rural agricultural to rural single-family. Is that what that means? Half acre, one house per acre. Is that what it means? Because there was this other thing that I read about. There was a proposed, from the group that's asking for it right now, there was a proposal to give a letter assuring that the density would not be to the full amount they were allowed. And that would allow for more protection of environmental things. If you should rezone land of this quality at that level next person who comes in already has the zoning. And he says, no, I'm going to build exactly what it says I can, and I don't care. Back when one of these houses hangs out over the bluff, I'll put some poles and hold it up because we're going to get this many houses in.
Well, they could not do that because the bill of assurance runs with the land and is part of the zoning, so they would not be able to violate the bill of assurance that limits the density, so they could not do that.
So are you saying then, Mr. Williams, that the bill of assurance is already in effect on that property, and if it's rezoned, it will stay with it?
It will only, I doubt, the bill of assurance will not be in effect because, in fact, the developer is walking away and the zoning that they requested is not going to be granted by the city council.
Okay, so you're predicting it. I hope that's right. At any rate, my recommendation to the neighbors is that they start trying to raise the money, and I don't know how much per acre it really is worth right now. But with all the conditions that you'd have to meet to do it right, it should be a better bargain for the neighbors to raise the funding and buy at least a portion of it to protect. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Yes, come on up.
My name is Steve Petroconis, and my bride Rosemary and I, we live at 2939 Brookberry Crossing. My first purpose in coming is to congratulate you, Mayor, on your re-election, and to let you know, to my knowledge, that everybody in Brookberry, Candlewood, and also Savannah voted for you. That was a vote against. Well, on a serious note, my purpose here is to congratulate the city government of Fayetteville because we as a neighborhood association have spent 4.5 months trying to work through the process. And we've learned a lot on the way, and it's come with the help of the Planning Commission staff, the City Council staff, the City Attorney's Office, and we have tried to work with the developer and communicate the best we could, and things kept changing on us as they did at the last City Council meeting. But we understand where you are, and we are very appreciative of the process and the work that everybody on your staff did for us as a neighborhood in allowing us to present our issues to you, and we're not going to repeat those tonight. But again, thank you. Are there any questions?
Hello, my name is Lori Yazwinski, and I came to speak on behalf of the Environmental Action Committee. A lot of the points I will discuss may not be applicable now since the permit has been pulled, but I think that they are important to consider if this issue does come up in the future, and I'd be happy to keep my paper on file and talk then as well. But this particular rezoning was of concern to the Environmental Action Committee because of its adjacency to the Flynn Creek corridor and the location of about 75 to 90% of the land being included within the Enduring Green Network, which is part of the City Plan 2030. The committee would like the City Council to consider the following recommendations and concerns in order to preserve this particular piece of land in its natural state as possible. The approximate 21 acres being proposed for development is an undeveloped greenfield site covered with mature trees. Flynn Creek falls within the city's streamside protection ordinance. We recommend the council ensures full compliance with the streamside protection ordinance with a 50-foot setback from the stream bank. We would also like to recommend city land to be dedicated for a city park along the setback in lieu of escrow. This parkland could accommodate passive recreational use for the adjacent neighborhoods, create an additional buffer for the natural creek habitat, and allow an undisturbed connection for the existing site ecology. City Plan 2030 and the Enduring Green Network currently proposes a trail system along Flynn Creek, connecting the Brookberry, Savannah, Candlewood, Covington neighborhoods with Vandergrift and McNair middle schools, as well as the neighborhoods and businesses on the corner of 45 and Highway 265. The Environmental Action Committee recommends a right-of-way provided for a similar future trail system to encourage pedestrian neighborhoods and alternative forms of transportation. We also recommend low-impact development strategies be implemented and a stormwater management plan be incorporated. The terrain of the proposed land naturally slopes towards Glen Creek. With the addition of impervious surfaces, the increased runoff will aggravate the current flooding issues the area is already experiencing. This will erode the bank edge and people's yards and destroy natural habitats along the creek. The Environmental Action Committee recommends that no trees or extents of earth be disturbed until there's a clear development technique and assured completion. In case limestone or other bedrock exists on the proposed development site, site work could become invasive and costly. If construction cannot be completed, the site should be preserved for the future. While these concerns may have already been voiced by other residents of the area, they are concerns that are shared by many and affect us all. These issues could be addressed by a bill of assurance or other measures the City Council deems fit, like not rezoning it or remaining residential agriculture. I'd like to thank you for taking these recommendations into consideration regarding this particular piece of property.
Thank you very much.